Patrick, thank you for being here with us right now.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
It's like, of all the places.
Hey, man. Normally I stick to Mindanao. I come out of the cellar, you know. I got to get some sunlight every once in a while.
Okay, and yeah, to be straightforward with you, that's what I had to do to actually meet you in Cebu right now. We had to be lost like 3 times just to see you again back in the woods.
That's my brand appeal right there. That's hybrid, man.
So yeah, let's go straight to it. Why did you choose to stay in the Philippines?
You know, when I got out of the military, there were a lot of questions. You know, and I'm really gonna you know, shoot from the heart here. I had a lot of things I wanted to do, but there were a lot of limitations in the States. And honestly, I had come here years ago for Balakatan, and it was it made sense to come back. And I tried the shoe on for a few months. It fit, and then just here we are. I mean, a lot of really weird, strange things that happened in a sequential order to make this whole thing possible. I don't think it could happen, you know, lightning striking twice. So the shoe fit, I wore it.
All right, so it started in Balikatan then. Okay.
That was a long time ago. That was a different lifetime.
Right. Okay. Well, have you been to any other like Asian countries though? Like any other tropical paradise?
Yeah. Singapore, Japan. I've been in China. I've been all over the place here. Australia. I've pretty much everywhere around here I've been. I guess I wasn't really sold on this place until I saw the reaction that the people give to the work that I do, which is really, you know, it's been really wonderful because it's very gritty and against the grain. That I give them something. I try to give them something different than what they get, and people reacted so well to that. So, you know, and Mindanao just really holds a special place in my heart. So, out of everywhere I've been, it just the common factors, I keep going back to Mindanao. So, it's you know, that would really be the place that stuck with me out of all the places I've been. So,
all right. So, the way I'm understanding it, so it all comes down to the people.
I mean, and to be honest with you, there's going to be good and bad everywhere you go in the world. It's just how you deal with the good and the bad. You know, there's been a lot of times in my work that I've been down about things, or that I've been, you know, like wondering how I could continue doing it. But consistently, I've had a lot of good people around me that were very supportive to give me the you know, the feedback that I needed. So I feel very fortunate in that aspect to have been able to have done that. So it really, the people make the place, and honestly, the attitude that you carry within yourself also helps dictate that. So for me, that's what it is.
Right. So at the moment, do you have an idea of the current situation of the Philippine agriculture right now?
You know, and honestly, I do, and I see the attitude, the collective attitude, and for me, I think it needs to come from the bottom. I think that the people need to look to their communities for the solutions to the problems, meaning that they need to look amongst each other, that they need to lift each other up by the bootstraps. I don't think that there's any magical slogan or program that's going to fix it. I think that what I've done, for example, is it's agriculture for the people. I open source the knowledge, and I do that in hopes that somebody can pick that up and they can take their spin on it, and that's in essence what hybrid agricultural empowerment is agriculture for the people, direct action. There's no filter between the educational content and the people, and with the stories and the personal profiles and the things, I just really do my best to keep it interesting, to address that problem, because the kids aren't interested in really anywhere in the world right now. I mean, there are some places, and I'm not going to paint in broad strokes, but the problem right now is that we're looking at this from the eyesight of a lack of will. Now, is the government as a investor into stakeholders that aren't interested into a program, how is that going to work out when the people don't want it? Meaning that it has to come from the people, and I think that the people have to want better. Even in America, the idea of growing in your front or backyard is very, very foreign. It's very, some people do it. I'm not going to say people don't do it, but not like it was, 50, 60, 70 years ago, where it's not just the Philippines. People think it's just the Philippines. It's everywhere. It's just the Philippines. It's a different spin, a different flavor on it. And I think that for me, that the main problem is the attitude towards agriculture. I think that there are good agencies that have good programs. I think that the willingness of the people to adapt to those programs, that's going to be something that they need to do. The people need to go and find what works for them. I give a baseline of things that I do that work for me, and if they work for other people, it's good. But in the end, there has to be leaving one's comfort zone, and I see that as being the primary issue of that in terms of agriculture from my corner being sustainable and ethical, and also self-reciprocating, because we're not in the best shape. The planet's not in the best shape right now. So
Right.
that's the short answer.
Okay, I don't want to hear the long answer. So yeah, you're saying what I'm understanding is it has to come from us, the Filipino people first.
No, people in general. It doesn't, that we don't need to section that off. It's humanity. Now, if there's enough damage done to the earth, is it going to be stopped by if just the Filipinos do it or don't do it? Everybody needs to work together. That's what the real problem here is now. Racial lines, cultural lines, religion lines, political party lines. We need to understand what the commonality and the stake that we all share in this for the comfort that we have as a human species tomorrow. And that's where I think that I draw, and I just want to say this real quick, where I draw away from someone like Greta Thunberg making very hardline, making very fiery rhetoric type statements, where we need to actually open the conversation properly as human beings before we are saying things that are going to make us clash like the same magnetic poles. So that's just something that I really believe in terms of that. So yeah.
So better ways. There are definitely better ways at dealing at this global problem that we have right now.
Yes, absolutely.
We're collectively, as a human race, somewhat, depending on who you ask, I guess. Somewhat brought upon ourselves.
I mean, definitely, depending on perspective.
Right. All right. So, what do you think is needed to amplify what you are doing right now? I mean, I know your focus is in Mindanao, but and you're doing great things for the communities that you get in touch with.
Right.
So, what do you think is needed to blow it up to? National, global.
I think that there are other people. I'm not the only person doing this. I'll say that again. And I just have my spin on the way that I do things. Especially, there are different communities that need different things. Now, I've worked with, people see the army farming stuff that I've done, and people don't understand my older works, where I had worked with the tribal community, I've worked with the LGUs, I've worked with religious sector groups. It's literally agriculture for the people. And the problem is that before, what would be needed to blow it up is that the people would have to understand their individual considerations in the community that would be applicable to making this work for them. Meaning to say that what is applicable in Baguio is not applicable here because of climate, or because of capability, or because of whatever the case may be. I'm not so idealistic or foolish to think that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, promote me, promote hybrid, this, that, and the other. I'm not. There are plenty of other expat bloggers here that can sell you a happy story and tell people what they want to hear. I'm more hardlining on the concept itself. If they want to go do it and they don't want to tag me, that's fine. It gets done. And that's really what is important to me. So what would be needed to blow it up would be the proper way, one, to, as I said before, to start that conversation, and two, to start the conversation of sustainability and saving our biodiversity as a planet, and two, the fact that we all need to understand how we're complicit in it. That would be what would be needed for it to work. Once you understand those, I think there will be a greater understanding of what's at stake here in terms of agriculture as a whole, food sustainability, biodiversity, food security, and the reciprocity of all of those.
From that, it's, to me, from what I understand from your answer, it seems like there's no cookie cutter approach to this.
It's not. It's you know, it's not like when you had in the old days, you had, you know, men standing in lines, you know, armies standing in lines shooting at each other. It's not a conventional idea of fighting a war. It is a war. It's just a war without bullets and bombs. It takes grit, it takes moxie, it takes determination, and we can't have a conventional symmetrical way of addressing that. And I think that, and I don't preach radicalism, I preach in terms of that, but I think that we need out of the box thinking to address the issues that are facing our food systems and that will soon be facing us as a whole. So, and I don't need to get into the drying up water, the glaciers and all that other stuff. There's plenty of articles on that online, but opening up the story itself, the narrative, should I say, to where it would fit and people can understand that they have to do the legwork on their own in their communities to understand what's needed, and the beginning of that is opening up that conversation.
Yeah, it sounds, that totally sounds like an uphill battle to me, to be honest. So grit, I'm sure it has to be there, especially when you're, you know, when you're dealing with agriculture in the middle of the, you know, Pacific Ring of Fire.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, that's one of the things that actually, you know, brings more, I mean, most people away from agriculture, because they say it's, you know, it's like you do this thing and then you pray for the next, you do one thing for 1 week and then you pray for the next 9 months.
Right.
So yeah, it's not going to be easy, that's for sure.
Well, and that's also an ideological concern, which are lines that I'm very careful not to tread. But I don't believe. The only thing I'll say is I do not believe that considerations for future generations should be left to the imagination or to any ideological thing. As much as we can create the elements, I think that we should do our best to respect and harness them.
Right. Or make the best, or adjust accordingly.
Right, correct. That's absolutely correct.
Right. Yeah, so with that, it sounds like we need more of you to amplify this, because there's no cookie cutter approach to it.
There are ways I don't even know about, and I'm not sitting here saying I'm the know-all, end-all, be-all. I saw something that I know needed addressed, that I know needed done. I had came up with a system that had worked, and it works in some areas for some people, and I have, to my best of my ability, stuck with the people that have continued to do this to help them have their voices heard as much as possible, because there's also stories of really good people doing really good things behind this. For me, people always thank me for my work. That's not the point. I'm glad that my work touches people, but at the end of the day, it comes back to the main point. let's not stray too far from the point here, you know, in terms of what needs to be done. So I don't, that's the thing is a lot of people believe their own bullshit. So I do my best not to. Sometimes you get caught up in it. I'm a human. I have my flaws the same as anybody else does. But at the same time, I also believe that that, you know, you should really instill that pride of ownership, that discipline, through letting people value their achievements as a community. And that's a big thing for me.
That's, yeah, again, that sounds very noble and very, if what you said is, you know, true, that, you know, there are also more people like you, or, you know, doing something like this in their own flavor. Right. That sounds very, you know, it's reassuring. Somebody's actually looking at the, you know, at this core problem of, of food security and those things.
Right.
What do you think are the main problems that will be solved by what you are doing right now?
You know, the main problem is, and I really mean this, I don't want to sound cliche, I really hope that people would come away with a new perspective of each other. And I'm really going to say something that, to be honest with you, I just came back from Basilan. And that's one of the boogeyman places in the Philippines that people have talked about. I've been to Zamboanga. I've been just about everywhere you can be in Mindanao. And the one thing I would hope, this is the sickness, so to speak. Everything else is just a symptom. I wish people would treat each other better, would understand, not necessarily just that, but have a bit more stopping and understanding, so that I believe that people could, you know, not necessarily, I'm not going to say sing kumbaya around the campfire, but just have a better understanding and tolerance, and understand that how they could move forward if they move together as a community. And I believe that the food security, I believe that the biodiversity and all of that would be solved if people understood the implications of their individual actions. Now, when you see communities like Basilan, where I just worked, people have told me those are critical areas, and I'm going to tell you that the people that are working on that project, not just the Army, but the Department of Agriculture that's in that local area, the LGU, and a lot of those people are understanding now, due to certain revelations in terms of how quickly things could go downhill. That's a geographically isolated island, and when they understand these things fully, like if there's a natural disaster, they're going to need to have food sourcing on the island. That's going to be 100%, or they're looking at having a very catastrophic type situation. So for me, that's the main issue. The other issues are just symptoms. When people have that pride of ownership, when they have gainful employment, when there is local money kept local, things like this will help in the overall picture. We're changing mindsets here. That's what we're doing, and we're doing it without bullets. We're doing it without force as much as possible. And the thing is that when you love something or someone, and I've had to bear the brunt of the notoriously famous Filipino internet machine at times, because you have to love someone enough to tell them they're wrong sometimes, and some people don't like that. And I'm not gonna say names or particular instances, but there are certain things in terms of the way things are going, and I'm not the only one saying them. So I'm not the only one in the Philippines saying them. So I would really, you know, like to see just people have a better understanding of each other, and like that, instead of being, and that's humanity in general, but I only speak in this context because this is the context and reality for which I exist. So that's sort of that's sort of my sight picture on what needs to be done. So yeah, that's my comments on that one.
I mean, you're dealing with small communities right here, like in Mindanao.
Right.
I mean, and then my point of view earlier was, coming from someone who's living in the metropolis,
right.
of 1 million people.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, I'm thinking about petty crimes and things like that. But your point of view is actually right where, it's from the roots, where you're dealing with communities in the mountains, where if you fix this very basic need of humanity, people are not going to be flocking the cities and doing whatever shady things they have to do.
Let me add a caveat to that. When natural resource is so abundant, growing season is year round. The Department of Agriculture and the Bureau of Plant Industry have been very forthcoming with offering assistance for my current projects. The problem is the mindset. That's the only thing it could be. The inclination to do so. I think that there is a group of people that are gardening, but people say, well, I don't own land. You don't have to own land. And community gardening, I'm sure that if there was a well put together proposal and if enough people backed it, the public servants have to answer to the edict that they have sworn to. If enough people raise their concern high enough, it will happen. I've seen this happen time and again. If enough concern is raised and it goes to the right people, the things will happen. There are organizations, groups, and people that do this, and that is their job. People mention the system and corruption. I just don't believe that I don't lay down and say that there's one blanket answer of not taking action on this. I don't believe that. And there's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things in agriculture here, and I think that I could go into all the reasons and all the struggles and all the things that I have working against me. I do not let it stop me from doing the work I do, and I do it for free. So, I really, and I'm tracking on what you're saying there. It's just optimal when a man has gainful employment. It's going to change his outlook towards the rest of the world. So I think that's one of the things that in time will be seen and appreciated, I hope, with this project more than anything, because the true legacy of a man is measured by the technology he leaves behind, because it outlives him. So that's really kind of the mindset that I go into this with.
Right. So let's go on to something more light.
Yeah.
If it's not a need to know basis.
Yeah.
Can you tell us your craziest story so far?
I really, with what I've done, when it's people ask me, and I'm like, it's the touring rock show for the last 5 years. I can tell you back, I believe it was Christmas 2017, I was coming out of the outskirts of Cagayan de Oro. I had just finished a project there, and there was a category typhoon at the Mucas. I got stuck at Mucas port, or I was coming from Iligan, and I had no way to get into Ozamis. So basically, in the middle of a category 2 typhoon, I was riding through Tangub in the back of an open vegetable truck in the middle of a typhoon. That's just another day at the office. Just recently with Basilan, we had a very unfortunate accident. We had slid off the road, and our car had actually slammed into a pavilion and taken out a kubo, and we were really lucky to walk away from that. It was just so unexpected, because the road was slippery and the turn was a bit sharp to take, and it just went straight off. It wasn't really anybody's fault. It was just, bad roads, and there's just been, it's always Looney Tunes 24/7. The thing is my expat friends always ask me, what do you expect in the Philippines? Expect the unexpected. That's the best thing I can tell you, is expect the unexpected. The more that you expect things, the more you're gonna be, shocked or disappointed when things are definitely not what you expect them to be. I have been around a lot of changes, 3 presidents here, and I can tell you that each and every time it's been, I've kind of grown up and come of age here, so there's definitely a whole lot of stuff that I could tell them. People are telling me to write a book one day. I'm thinking about doing it. So,
well, I think you should. I think you should. I mean, you're in a, you go to places in Mindanao where even Filipinos don't want to think about. I mean, I would say it's, that's okay if you weren't white. I mean, or Caucasian in color, but man, you're like a walking 500 million if you're asking me.
It's a lot of the situations, and a lot of people talk about that. It's all about who you know, who you go there with, and a lot of times the attitude you carry. I would not go into a situation that I knew was dangerous, and to answer that, there are other people in the blogger community that are saying that there are no safety concerns in Mindanao. I'm going to tell you right now that's bullshit. I've been down there, and I think that they don't need to toe the PR line for certain organizations, and that's all I'm going to say. Mindanao, there are areas in Mindanao that are at risk, and people, very good people, are risking a lot. And I'm not saying this to be conceited, like myself, that are wanting to bring those areas back to where people can have a quality of life and a certain dignity that comes along with that. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I just really don't feel that that's responsible to promote places that aren't ready, especially when there are communities that are not ready to be exposed to massive tourism or massive foreign people coming in. They have no infrastructure for it, or it's just like there are places I've went as a white person that I'm sure very few, if any, white people have ever been here
and got away
and walked away, and I respect that. That's a very, very, very heavy responsibility that certain people have put on me that they respect me enough to work in their communities, and I take that very, very seriously, and it's a very privileged position for me.
And that's coming from someone who has a military background.
Yes.
Okay.
And you really have to understand things as they are to fully comprehend and appreciate both sides of a coin. The military wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for the direction I was headed in as a person. So I did what I needed to do, and I did I did the soul searching and came up with what I came up with. So
it's actually, I think it's good to hear that coming from you, and I'm hoping we can redo this like 5-10 years from now.
Yeah.
That opinion would change because of the things that you do and the things that people like you are doing for the communities.
Right.
I mean, because I think it's gonna help a lot.
Yeah, like I said, in terms of the hostile areas, I'm never alone. I always have the right people with me.
Right.
So and I don't go looking for trouble. I don't go egging people on. I don't do that. So.
Right.
And I don't believe in that. That's not the point. I'm not waving the American flag saying rah, rah, rah. No, what I'm doing is I'm not affiliated with an NGO. I'm not backed by the US government. This is the baseline, bottom line, how sustainable agriculture for the people. I don't toe party lines for anybody, and that's how it works. That's how it plays out. And if they like it, fine. If they don't, I'm sorry. So the world's never going to change unless people are willing to leave their comfort zone and take risks.
Right. Bring the grit to actually do the needed changes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So where do you see this going in the near future?
There are people that are interested in very high places in this, and what I'm like I said, I don't toe party lines. there has been a letter given to the office of the president. The vice president has shown interest. The Army is very interested in the applications. There are people in the Army that are interested in the applications of this for their communities. The Philippine Army, as of now, is actively talking about climate change. I've only given the smallest input to them. I'm not taking a side in anybody's war or anybody's struggle. They asked for the educational material and I gave it to them. The same as the Lumads that asked for it, the Lumad indigenous tribes, I gave it to them. The same as the LGUs and everywhere from Ozamis to Compostela to everywhere else that I've worked. They ask for it. It's for the people. So, you know, where do I see it going? I believe it can only go up from here. I mean, I give this, you know, in the next 5 years, this concept or whatever, whatever form that it exists in, that I believe that will be something that outlasts me. The concept will outlast me, and wherever you go, there will always be people that want to do this. So. You know, in the next 5 to 10 years, I see there being an agricultural renaissance, actually, in the Philippines. I think that when people wake up and see what can be done, that they will get involved. That they will. There'll be more. It won't be everybody. I'm not so foolishly idealistic, but I believe it'll happen. So it's just going to take time. Nothing happens. Nothing good that's a societal change like this is going to happen overnight.
Right. And that sounds very exciting for you. I'm
right.
super excited for you. Just, you know.
Right.
I do believe it's. I mean, coming from a limited experience in whatever it is that you're doing.
Right. Right.
I think it's a direction that most of us will have to, you know, fly regardless if we want it or not. Especially
right.
with, you know, with the Philippines being now the biggest rice importer in the world, and you know, more people are like going down the mountains maybe and just outright leaving farms.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the problem with that whole situation is. And the one that gets me, that really gets me is the fact that people are so willing to give that up. I mean, it's really in the blood here, and I have, you know, I don't give too many. I do interviews. I've done interviews with the media before, but nobody actually gets. I don't get to speak as candidly as I do here, and I'll tell you that honestly speaking. It all comes back to the mentality of the people. That there will be farming there if they want it to be there, if they're willing to press for it. And you know, it's very strange. It's very alien concept to me that it wouldn't be there, because I found it. I've went looking for places and people to farm with, and I have no shortage of people that want to do it. I think that, but it needs to be on a more mainstream level. As far as rice tariffication, I get asked that question every week, probably twice a week, maybe more. You know, there are some things that are beyond our control, and I don't toe the political line. What I'm going to say is people should think about diversifying. People should think about checking other crops and seeing what their land can do. I think that is something that people should really look into, is growing other crops, is you know, and I do believe that DA Secretary William Darr had said something about that, about diversifying and climate resiliency and these sorts of things, and it's good to hear someone in his position say that. I mean, it's a very refreshing candor that we have, you know, self-sustaining systems and systems that are going to help keep our landscapes functional, and I like that he's saying that. So
that's what you said earlier, right? We need to adapt.
Well, William Darr said, the soil, regeneration of the soil is key. I'm a regenerative farmer, so he's preaching to the choir, and I think that's a very good thing, very refreshing thing, because he's treating the soil as a living thing in the context that he's talking about it. So I think that that agriculture, in terms of the input side and what he's saying, especially with the baseline of the soil being what needs to be addressed first, is definitely the what I'm liking to hear. So I think that's a good conversation to have, and I'm very supportive of that mindset.
Promising.
It is.
In one word, it's promising.
Yeah, it's good to hear. It's good to hear them acknowledge that. Definitely. So.
All right. That's it for questions.
All right, man. I want to add one last thing here, if I can.
Yeah.
Just to drive home the importance of everything. And in the next half decade to a decade, you're going to see automation of jobs. You're going to see the final outsourcing, meaning that when BPOs, call centers, transport jobs, food service, when they are all automating to robotics, cutting their operating expenses 85 to 90%, I think that the idea that people are going to need to return to their roots of growing their own food to either sell to each other for local economy or to supply those foods, to the food market, however that would work, because even farming is going to be susceptible to AI. I think that people need to consider having those base skills for a changing situation such as that, changing paradigm situation such as that. So for me, that's just something that I want people to think about, and we'll see where things go. And I really would like to say thanks to the people that support the work that I do, that help it become what it is. And I try to give them something positive every day. And I'm not used to doing, I think this is the first time I've actually spoken like this, where I've just kind of spoken what I want to say, versus, the cookie cutter white savior script that the media always gives me. Because that's generally how it goes. Oh, it's a white guy doing this, I can't believe it. And I'm grateful that they give me airtime, but there are certain things there's punches that I have to hold back, that I need to be throwing those punches, because there are times that it's a boxing match with this indifference towards climate change, and I'm throwing punches with bad intentions right now to wake people up, to say this is the problem. And I appreciate that people are receptive to that, and that I have my platform, and I really owe it to them. It wouldn't happen without them. And the last thing I'm going to say is, I'm not going to say like and subscribe. Actually, what I'm going to tell you is if you don't want to hear the truth, unfollow and unsubscribe. This is real. This is real stories. This is real people. This is true impact. This is for the community. And if you don't like that, I don't want you. If you do, thank you. I'm grateful to you eternally, and stay tuned for more. So it's been a pleasure doing this, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
All right.